right into the meat of our conversation and talk about the common grant application for small businesses. And then I'm going to follow that up with sources where you can actually find some of these juicy nuggets. And then we're going to follow up with resources for support for you, the small business owner. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, we're all familiar with traditional methods of funding, the self-funding, aka bootstrapping, where you're out there and you're using your savings and probably your family's savings, credit cards, etc. So that's a common source. Loans, if you are able to get the collateral together and repay it, that's also a source. There's also crowdfunding, investors, products and services, even if you're at the stage of development where you are actually selling something or offering your service, those fees can be used to fund your business. But there's also grants. Yeah. And I love grants because not only is it other people's money, you traditionally don't have to repay them. So it's a sum of money that's given to you so that you can grow, sustain, innovate your business. And this is probably an amazing source of revenue for you, but you've got to know how to win them, right? Got to know how to do it. And it requires that you're actually eligible. Now, you've got to know upfront that small business grants are highly competitive, and each small business grant maker, they're going to have their own set of guidelines and eligibility and even questions. But traditionally, if you are pursuing a small business grant, you do need to be a small business. So in terms of eligibility, we're going to need you to be a small business legally. And sometimes funders will have qualifications around the number of employees that you have. If you are a startup, that might not be the case. But I'll tell you, if you're applying for grants where you're in the mature stage, most often these grant makers are going to want to see that you've got at least one employee. So employees, having an employee is another eligibility criteria. Then there's also owner demographic. And I'll say that by and large, these small business grants are open to you regardless of your background. But there is a cohort of funders that want to see that you are either minority or a woman, or a veteran. And so sometimes the eligibility criteria is going to be narrow in scope, and you've got to fit into that box that the funder has for you for eligibility. And then there's also your phase of development and purpose. There are funders that do not care what phase of development and your purpose, but there are funders that do. Some of them are going to require that either you were brand new, just getting off the ground, in concept or startup phase, but others are going to want you to be in a different phase of development. So you're going to look for that when you're looking at eligibility for your small business. And then there's the industry itself. And so although many of these grant makers are going to welcome your application, regardless of your background or your industry, some of them will say, well, no, we're only funding those businesses that are engaged in, say, food or service, maybe businesses that are in retail, hospitality. So there are some funders that are going to specify exactly the industry that they're interested in funding for. So all of this to say, it's really important that you read the fine print. Grant makers are going to have guidelines. I want you to get a copy of those guidelines. I want you to read those guidelines, and then I'm going to need you to follow those guidelines so that you increase your opportunity for funding. Another thing that can increase your opportunity for funding, and by the way, the reason we're here today, is a common grant application. I've always found this to be the most efficient method or approach to business funding if you're in preparation stage. So if you are a small business and you want to already have a pre-written document with the likely questions that you're going to be asked on applications already filled out, have your responses ready so that you don't have to get into these applications thinking about, well, what should I say? There's no continuity. You may get timed out in the application process. Just planning ahead is really a key. Now, how do you do that? With so many funders out there and so many possible questions, how do you get yourself ready? I'm glad you asked. So looking at so many opportunities out there and reviewing applications literally every day, I've come up with about 9 sections. And within these sections, there's going to be questions that you will traditionally see on grant applications. So now is the time to get your notepads ready. I want you to take copious notes on what you can do to prepare your own common grant application. So let's take a peek at these 9 sections. The first is your business identification and contact details. Then you want to prepare your business profile and operations. You're going to move right on over to your performance and the challenges that you might be facing in your organization or your business. You're going to look at your strategy and your potential impact for your business. You're going to look at diversity and inclusion, how you are actually making sure that you are adhering to some of these DEI policies that are out there. You're going to look at resilience and adaptability. How nimble is your business in the face of challenge? And then there's questions that's going to be asked of you almost every time about the award itself and what it is that you're requesting. You're going to pivot over to your disclosure and relationship, and we'll talk about what that means. And then finally, we're going to wrap up with supplementary information. So these are my 9 sections, and I'd like us to now engage in looking at these sections one by one so that you can put your own common grant application together for your business. All righty. So first up, section 1, business identification and contact details. And I can hear you guys right now saying, Cheryl, I already know that. I know who I am and what I do. And I believe you, you're believable, but you want to have this information already ready. So having your contact information, your business name, address, and your website, your legal structure, the year that you were actually started, your NAT code. In addition to that, you want those social media handles already prepared in advance on a separate sheet of paper. And I'm going to use a fictitious organization or business as our example. So the business we're going to use is Beck's Bakery. So Beck has a bakery and she needs funding. And so we're going to go through an application for Becky so that you can see how yours might be situated as well. Now with that section 1, business contact name, Rebecca Hanson. Position, founder or head baker. Call yourself whatever you've determined, whether you're the president, the CEO. In this case, she's the founder and the baker. And her email address, telephone number, where she's located. Her business legal structure is an LLC, so that's there along with her website. And then when we get to the piece of legal structure, making sure that you actually have your legal structure listed. You're, in this case, Beck's LLC, so she's a limited liability company. So whatever you are, spell that on out, and then you'll have your year that you've started, and then your NAT code. In this case, this is retail and bakeries. And those social media handles. Now, you may be on Facebook, you may be on X or Instagram, but do you have those media handles readily available? So taking the time out to already have them on your document so that you can easily cut and paste them is going to save you a lot of time. Now, as we move into our section 2, we're getting into the grid of things. We're talking now about our business profile and our operations. And with that, we're going to look at the stage of development that you're in. Many grant funders are going to ask you that. We're going to look at exactly what it is that you're doing, where you're located, and whether or not you have employees. These are common questions that you're going to need to respond to on a grant application. Now, how do you respond? Let's keep with our fictitious Beck's Bakery and let's see how you might respond. Now, stage of development. Beck's Bakery is an established local bakery known for its artisan breads and pastries. Currently, we're in the growth phase, aiming to expand our product line and reach within our region. In terms of the products or services sold, our baked goods are sold primarily through brick and mortar shop in Sweetfield, Georgia. We've recently started a hybrid model, integrating an online storefront where customers can place their orders for local delivery within a 20-mile radius. Our primary sector, Beck's Bakery, operates within the food and beverage sector with a focus on baked goods. We specialize in organic, gluten-free, and traditional baked items. In terms of our employees, in this case, this fictitious business has 4 employees. You may have none. If so, say that. So in this case, with Beck, We currently have a dedicated team of 4 employees, which includes a full-time baker, pastry chef, a store manager, and a part-time service staff. Now, did we communicate effectively enough for a potential grant maker? Well, let's see. If we take a peek at what a grant maker might be looking for, they ask you very specific questions and they want very precise responses. So don't make them dig for your answer. Go ahead and tell them up front. And often it's advisable to use their own language. So they want to know when you're established. Beck's Bakery is an established local bakery, and this is what we sell. Where are the products sold? Glad you asked. These products are primarily sold through, and you tell them exactly where you're sold. The business sector, you've got to know your sector. If you're not sure, look it up, right? Go and look up your sector and find out that you're in manufacturing or find out that you're in retail. But whatever your sector is, go ahead and tell them that in one sentence. And then how many employees you have. Again, in this case, Beck has 4. You may have 0 at this stage, and that's okay because you may be applying for startup or concept funding. All right, so that's a look at the business profile example. Let's go ahead and move on to looking at the business performance and challenges. Almost every grant application is going to ask you about your challenges. And the key here is to make sure that you're still upbeat and very progressive and very positive about even your challenges. So the questions you're going to respond to are, what are your top challenges that you're being faced with? What is your annual revenue? Have you received outside capital? They want to know that. And then what significant milestones have you accomplished in the last 3 years? Obviously, if you're in your inaugural year as a small business owner, you don't have that tenure to report on. But if you do, you're expected to share that with the potential funders. So let's take a peek at what this might look like if we're Beck's Bakery. All righty, so your top challenges, get to the point immediately. And so the top challenge here, navigating the rise in raw materials while maintaining affordability for our customers. Expanding our online presence and digital sales channels in a market that highly values in-person experiences. Retaining skilled bakers and pastry chefs in a competitive job market. And those might be your top challenges. And then in terms of revenue, for the past year, Beck's Bakery generated $180,000 in revenue, reflecting steady growth despite market challenges. Now, let's go ahead and look at what a funder might be zeroing in on. Your top challenges. You may not have all of these challenges, but you're going to need to disclose something, right? And so we want you to just disclose something that you're doing that's very proactive. You're navigating something, you're expanding something, or you're trying to retain or hold on to something. So be very mindful of these adjectives that you're going to be using to describe what it is you're doing. And in terms of your revenue, we've got here that Beck brought in $180,000 in revenue. But again, this might not be you. You could be bringing in nothing because you're in the concept or startup phase, or you could already be over the million mark. Whatever it is, tell your truth. Okay, so let's follow up and finish up with this section 3 with outside capital raise. Now, this funder really wants to know, what other things do you have in your pot? What else is going on? Should we be on that we should be aware of as potential funders? And so you'll share, to date, in this case, we have not raised outside capital. The business has been self-funded, with initial investments made by me, the founder, and profits being reinvested back into the business. Tell your truth. Significant milestones in the first 3 years. Glad you asked. So we have secured a loyal online ordering customer base. Remember, they switched to a hybrid model, as evidenced by 60% customer reorder rate, developed a signature line of gluten-free pastries, transitioned to 100% eco-friendly packaging. And so they're being very positive about some of these great things that they have put in place over the last 3 years. And a funder, potential funder, is going to zero in on the funding or outside capital you've raised. So go ahead and tell them that upfront, what you have or have not done. In terms of your milestones, you've done something if you're established. So if you're an established business, share with them, what have you secured? What have you developed? Or what have you transitioned to? Share with them something that you've been doing so they know that you've got traction within your already established business. And that wraps up your challenges. Let's move over to your next section, which would be your strategy and your impact. They always want to know about that, right? And so you're going to be responding on your common grant application to the strategies that you've put in place to overcome some of those challenges we've talked about, your business support for the community that you operate in, and then if you are an employer, speak to this particular grant maker about your job opportunities that you've created if you're in that position. So let's go ahead and see what this might look like for Beck's Bakery. So strategies employed to overcome early stage challenges. So this bakery implemented an innovative online ordering system, making sure with this response that there is continuity across everything else we've already shared. The bakery also introduced a baking workshop and classes to diversify revenue, to bring in additional revenue for their bakery. And they also partnered with local farmers for sustainable sourcing of those organic ingredients. So they've been really busy these last few years. In terms of other support or supporting their community, before I share this, I want to share this comment with you. Many of the grant makers that you're going to be applying with, they're funders, not just for potentially you, but they may also fund the nonprofit community. So what they are really interested in is social responsibility. And they're interested in partnering with small businesses that are like-minded. So you're wanting to be able to share with the funder that you are also engaged in social responsibility, that you also care about your community. So it's really, really important that if you haven't already done this step, get engaged, find out who's out there in your community and how your business can be a part of the solution for your community. Now, for Beck's Bakery, we said, donated surplus baked goods to local food banks and shelters, sponsored community events and school programs to promote healthy eating habits, and started an annual Bake for a Cause event where a portion of sales are donated to the global hunger relief efforts. And when a funder views this application, they're going to be looking for what you've implemented, what you've introduced, or who in the community you've partnered with. So even if you are super new, inaugural year, and you've really not started anything yet, you can at least secure partners, right? And so looking at your strategies, and in terms of your support, it is never too late to get engaged with the nonprofit community and show that you do care about the community that you operate in. And it also helps to align with some of the things that are important to a potential funder. So, all righty. Now let's move on over to our last question within our section under strategy. And that is, have you created jobs, right? Are you contributing to the economy in that way? And if you have not, no worries, say that. Always say your truth. But if you have, share it. So in this case, Beck's Bakery hired one additional employee in the past year and partnered with rideshare companies for delivery. And they've also created internship opportunities for students from local culinary schools. And this is really important because hiring does contribute to our economy. It does create job opportunities for people who could really use it, especially today. And then if you haven't created a job, it's okay. Maybe you're starting to partner with the local university so that you can get interns. If you haven't done that yet, believe it or not, it's still okay. In this case, if this is a question, you can't leave it blank. And it's really not a good idea to say, we've done nothing. You may come back and say something like, we are planning to partner with our local universities to bring in interns. So just always remembering that the funder's looking for that proactive, planning ahead, doing your part type application. So that's a response that you could use. Let's go ahead and move on to diversity and inclusion. And in this section of your Common Grant application, you're going to address questions that speak directly to team representation. Who's on your team? Are you representing the community that you serve? Are you diverse? Have you established diversity programs? If you have, you'll speak to that. And then how do you measure success? Now, a response from our fictitious small business would be, under the team representation, would be, our team is diverse, with 50% coming from historically underrepresented groups, including minorities and individuals with disabilities. And in terms of diversity and inclusion, the initiatives you may have started, well, establish the Baking Bridges program designed to offer baking apprenticeships for individuals from underprivileged backgrounds. So that might be something you could engage in within your own small business, starting something that's going to improve the community, especially those that are less fortunate. And hosting an annual cultural heritage baking day. In this case, they did that. And so what you're looking for, again, almost like the strategies, just being as proactive as you can with understanding that diversity is a thing. And these funders are expecting you to embrace it. And in terms of your team, you can't help at this moment if your team isn't diverse, but you can say your truth followed by what your plans are to bring in a diverse group of team members. In terms of programs, maybe you haven't established one yet or hosted one yet, but you can partner with other organizations, or you can put this in the plan. But these are the kinds of responses that a potential funder is actually looking for when it comes to your DEI. The last question you're going to respond to is your measurement of success in diversity and inclusion efforts. And one way you might respond is, we track participation in our Baking Bridges program, aiming for a retention rate of 90% into full employment. Consumer feedback through surveys and questions, that's another biggie. So even if, you guys, even if you're not able to put into place something that you're tracking and measuring that way, you can at least get consumer feedback. So for customer feedback surveys, it's really important that you do collect feedback from those that you serve in your community. Use that feedback for feedback loops so that you can bring into play things that matter to the customers that you serve, so that you are representing their interest. Business resilience and adaptability. So there's really only one question that you're going to answer for this section, and this is for strategies or qualities that helped the business thrive during adversity. And this question is really getting you to have a look back at what you did in the past to keep yourself going, your endurance. For this particular question, you might respond by showing that you are nimble. That means that you are able to rapidly adapt to any market changes and leverage what you have in place. In this case, your online sales and contactless delivery. You might also look at diversification of your product offerings to include do-it-yourself baking kits. In this example, this would make sense for Beck's Bakery. What funders are also looking for is that you've maintained your strong community presence, that you didn't cower in the face of adversity, that you stood strong. You may need help now, but you didn't quiver and go away. And so when you're answering this question, again, being nimble, diversification, and maintaining that presence is what's going to be important when you respond to this question. All right, so number 7, your award narrative and recognition section. And this is where you talk about your story, the business's journey. You're going to then go ahead and create, if you haven't already done it, your elevator pitch, making sure that it is clean and concise. You're going to talk about your actual request, what it is you want, and then you're going to talk to the funder in writing about how you're going to potentially leverage the award. Now, for this section, keeping with our fictitious small business, Beck's Bakery, your story might read something like this. Beck's Bakery started with a single table farmer's market stall, fueled by my passion for delicious food made by way of traditional baking using wholesome ingredients. I transformed my grandmother's recipes that were passed on to me into a thriving bakery that honors tradition while embracing modern dietary needs. And for your elevator pitch, Beck's Bakery is a small business established in 2019 and located in Sweetsville, Georgia. Since inception, we've become more than just a bakery. We're a community hub where every bite has a story. Each day, we turn organic, locally sourced ingredients into bread and pastries that are not only good and yummy, but good for the customers, our community, and our planet. Keeping it super simple, very, very concise, but really getting to the heart of what funders really want to know from you is what's important here. And so if you'll see, we've looked at Beck's Bakery. We started off with saying, this is where we've started. It makes sense that she started with one small little market stall, but she grew her business into a brick and mortar because of her passion and the help of her grandma's recipes. But she grew her business. And so your journey, sometimes funders will give you the latitude of speaking more about your journey, but most often they want just a crisp statement of how you got started. In terms of your business pitch, really important to upfront let them know we are a small business. This is where we were started. This is where we're located. And this is what we've done since we've started. And I'll share with you in that business pitch, you might not always have a funder say, well, tell us, what you're proud of. But they also want to know that. Funders always want to know what you have done since you've started, regardless of what that is. You tell your truth, but share it with the funder in a clean, concise way. About your request. This is where you're going to very concisely share with the funder how much you're seeking and what you're seeking funding for. So in this example, we've shared we are seeking $50,000 in funding for facility enhancement and technology upgrades. And then you'll move on to share exactly how that funding is going to be used. So funding is going to enable renovation and the investment in that state-of-the-art baking equipment. So go ahead and share with the potential funder exactly the amount and exactly how the funding is going to be used. Alrighty, up front, without wasting any time. And this is where the funder's eyes are going to go. They're going to go right to that first sentence of exactly what it is you're intending to do with their money, given the opportunity. Leveraging the award. I'm going to give you a quick and easy synopsis of what you can say, because every single time you apply for a grant, you may ask for a different thing. So this is a general statement that you could use. Recognition, technical support, mentoring, or financial award would amplify our local and regional reputation, giving us legitimacy and visibility to attract new customers and to help secure additional funding for expansion. It would also celebrate our team's hard work and the community that supported us from the start. All righty, and so let's move along. We're at section number 8, which is disclosure and relationship. And in this section, you're going to answer 3 fundamental questions: conflict of interest declaration, the relationship to the business for which you're applying for funding, and your ownership position or percentage within your own business. And for conflict of interest declaration, I will share that for the most part, there's already going to be a preprint of this conflict declaration. But in the event that it isn't, I want to share with you what this looks like. So essentially, you're just declaring there is no conflict, that there is no connection between you and the potential funder. So here, Beck said, I, Rebecca Hanson, certify that neither I nor Beck's Bakery has any conflict of interest concerning the grantor or its employees. There are no family memberships or family members employed by the grantor, nor is there any grantor employees invested in our bakery. And again, this is probably going to already be pre-printed for you, so you'll normally just check a box, but if not, you now have a statement. Next up is your relationship with the business. In this case, I'm the founder and sole owner of Beck's Bakery with 100% ownership in the business. My role encompasses management, service delivery, product development, and business strategy. And you want to just be upfront. If you are the sole owner, say that. If there are other silent owners or anybody else that has a percentage or stake in your business, then you do need to disclose it at this point, because that grant isn't just for you, it is for the business. And if the business is owned by more than one person, that grantor wants to know who or who else. All righty, so now to wrap up the supplementary information, and this part is also just as important. It's the fun part, but it's important. And this is where you're going to share your headshot and your video. Many small business grant makers want to know who they're funding. And I mean want to know intimately. They want to be able to see you. So making sure that not during the application process, but in advance, you have taken a professional photo of yourself, a headshot, professional attire, a smile, nice background, making sure that it's presentable for a funder who may have a desire to post you on their websites too. And then that business video, being able to share with the potential funder what it is that you're asking for, why this is important, what your mission and vision is for the future. That's important to do that in advance. You don't want to wait until you're in the application itself, pulling out your phone and then, recording something without any real forethought. So take the time to create maybe a 20, 30-second video that really just shares about who you are, the business, its why, what it's accomplished, what you're seeking, and why you're seeking funding. So that's really important to a lot of funders. Be prepared for it. Now that we wrapped up your common grant application, we're going to pivot on over to understanding the grantor's objectives. As we do this, I want you to put yourself in their position. You've got a company or organization that's interested in giving you funding, and they've taken the time to write out guidelines of who might be eligible, right? The eligibility criteria, how much they're actually offering, and they're really counting on you as a potential applicant to actually read their fine print. Only apply for those opportunities that you actually qualify for, matching objectives. If you're applying for funding and you know that this particular funder is very interested in technology, then you're going to shift your responses to focus on technology. If you know that they're really interested in growth and scaling, then you're going to shift your responses so that you focus on how your business is aiming to grow and expand. So shifting so that you make sure you're still you, but that you are creating an application that a funder wants to read and get behind. So that's really important to match those objectives. And then show potential impact. Nothing at all wrong with sharing with a potential funder. If we're awarded this funding, this is going to be the impact. We're going to be able to increase our jobs, grow this business, scale to more cities and states, show the potential impact as a result of their funding. That matters to these funders. I know that they are corporations by and large, but they're still people behind the corporation. So speak openly, concisely, and honestly in terms of what your intentions are. And then the documents to have handy. I'll share that for small business grants, it's not uncommon that many of them, especially if you are applying for a grant from a government agency, they're going to expect that you have a business plan. And oftentimes they're going to expect that you're ready to upload that plan for their review. So getting your business plan intact is going to be helpful for you along with your financials. Many times grant makers will ask you for a budget and what you're planning. Well, the budget is a plan of what you're projecting for the year, but there's also those funders that want to know what happened. And that's where those financials come in. So it's really important to have business plan that has financials attached. Proof of business existence. If you're applying for funding from a grant maker that has specifically said you need to be a small business, you're going to need to be able to provide proof of that. And then customer testimonials always help. Having those customers either record those short videos for you, we call them impact videos, where it's 20 minutes of how great you are, or putting something in writing that you can share with a potential funder. Never hurts to have that already in place before you apply. Now, once you apply, then what happens? When do you follow up? I get this question all the time. Cheryl, when do we follow up? We've submitted our application. Should we call them tomorrow? No, you want to give them a chance to review your application. So I would say trust and respect the process. So if a funder tells you that we're accepting applications, our deadline is tomorrow, and it's going to take us 30 days or so to review, allow them that time to review it. And then when you do follow up, it's really important that you follow up very respectfully, not I submitted this application. Where is my application? At this point, what's my status? So that's not what you do. Instead, you might ask, I've submitted the application, just curious to know if you've come to a decision or if there's other questions that you might have. So being very respectful, because you don't want to end up in the no stack. And you could end up in that no stack depending on how you communicate. The other thing is preparing for your interview. Many times once you have been awarded or you receive a notice of award, these funders are going to want to meet you. They're going to send out an email, usually in your inbox, to say, congratulations, you've been selected. We love to meet with you to tell you about your next steps. And so get prepared for that interview, thinking of the likely questions they might ask you. Get those financials ready in case they want to ask you some money questions. And then again, those testimonials, all of those little pieces that we did talk about, being ready to have a professional conversation with the potential funder. And just making sure that if you're not going to host that conversation in your place of business, that you are in a place, especially if it's virtual and you're Zooming or something, that you've got a professional background behind you and not like, your laundry clothes and, dogs and kids running around. So that's important as well. And the last thing is just don't stop there. Don't give up. There are more no's than yeses, but you've got to persevere. Go through all of those no's to get to your yeses, because I assure you, people are getting funded through grants every single day. Why not you? Why not you? Okay. And so in terms of your resources, I promised that I would share where you might find some of these juicy opportunities. And so I've got a whole list here of a lot of organizations that are just known for supporting small businesses. So we've got the whole gamut from Axion to Adidas, Amazon, Amber grants for women, American Express, Etsy. You gotta love them. They want to make sure that people on their platform stay funded. You've got American Express, I Fund Women. By the way, I Fund Women. Not only do they offer grants, but they also offer workshops and support to help women business owners get prepared for grant funding. So they're amazing. There's Intuit, there's Lavino, the NAACP. We've got so many opportunities out there available to the small business community. There is NAS, the National Association for the Self-Employed. They offer grants, UPS, Vimo, Visa, Verizon. And then you can also find grant opportunities through networking groups, right? So network with other small business owners. Inevitably, you're going to come across opportunities that you did not know about. They're not mainstream, but they're opportunities nonetheless. Your small business development centers, usually you will work with them for technical support, but they will also many times have opportunities available where they can share with you to apply here or to apply there. So they're a good resource for identifying funding. There's also the Minority Business Development Agency. There is LinkedIn. Social media cannot rule out the social media aspect. And then if you're still stumped, go on over to NerdWallet. NerdWallet has a wealth of information on their website for small business owners. And they even narrow scope to demographic, the kind of small business owner you might be. But there are so many great opportunities, and then just lots of great advice and tips that they do offer on their website. Hello Alice, actually one of my personal favorites. I like them because when you sign up for your free account, they will inbox you almost weekly with some type of opportunity. It's either techno assistance, some type of workshop, or definitely grant opportunities. uschamber.com. They are a best kept secret. If you're not familiar with them, please go on over to their website, because not only can you find grant opportunities that are updated on a regular basis, but you can also find loan opportunities there as well. And then there's grants.gov. Many small business owners don't understand how valuable this platform is. Yes, there are grants and contracts available for just all kinds of folks, including the nonprofit community, but they also have grants available for the small business owner. And I've got some highlights here in my screen. If you'll just take a peek, if you're wanting to find business grants, you are going to narrow to the instrument, meaning grant, and the eligibility, meaning small business. Otherwise, there'll be thousands of opportunities in the return that don't apply to you. But grants.gov is a source. And then if you're into research and development, the SBIR grants might be useful to you as well. I like those for their own set of reasons. They allow you to get from concept to the discovery phase to let's put it to the public phase of whatever it is you're developing in terms of technology. So those are great resources from the government if you're interested. And general resources, outside of just grant making, if you just need help putting you together as a small business, please contact your nearest SCORE. Go on over to the SBA, because on those websites, you'll be able to find a wealth of information, including samples for your small business plan and financial statements and other resources that SBA has in addition to SCORE. business mentoring. And for SCORE, business mentoring is complimentary to the small business owner for as long as you need it. There is smart money if you want to become more financial literate, and who couldn't become more financial literate, right? There's the knack. And if you don't know what your North American industry classification number is, you can go search for it. Chamber of Commerce, Mint, got tons of resources here, all to help you move your small business to the next level. So it's my sincere hope that just, sitting with me during this brief conversation will help you to move to the next stage where you're actually positioning yourself for grants for your small business. Again, I am Cheryl Smith. This has been my absolute joy to spend this time with you today. And thank you so much for being here with me on this platform and learning more about how you can fund your business. And thank you to SCORE and the SBA for having me here. I'm ready right now for us to go into your questions, and so that I can hopefully supply you with some meaningful answers.
All right. Hello, everybody. That was a fantastic presentation. And now let's move into Q&A. So, Cheryl, we have tons of questions to get to. The first one that we have here is, how old should your business be in order to be approved for a grant?
Yeah, so that's a great one. And thanks for everybody hanging out today. The answer is there's really no set answer. You really want to follow the guidelines for the funder. They're going to let you know in no uncertain terms whether or not you're to be new, meaning that you have literally just started your small business, or whether they're looking for a mature business. So I would say read the guidelines. There really isn't a set one size fits all box for these grants. So read the guidelines and follow those guidelines.
All right. And then another great question. Would you be so kind as to address if there is a grant proposal for online businesses, and what is the difference between that and a brick and mortar business?
Okay. Yeah, that's actually a really great question. Thank you, whoever asked that. So you're still a business at the end of the day. Whether you are brick and mortar or whether you are online, you are delivering, selling, you've got a service or a product, you are still a business. I would say that maybe the main focus, if you are online, because you've entered the digital platform, is that you are maybe focusing on more e-commerce, technology, maybe software upgrades that you might need for your business, funds to expand yourself into different markets. And so that would maybe a difference, but you are still a business. So whatever it is that your business is doing, whether you were doing it online or you're doing it in front of a person that's walking into your place of business, you are still a business. And I would just say the type of grant that you might go for and the type of data you may report on might be different. And data meaning, let's see, as opposed to me calculating how many people actually come into my place of business, you might then track your website traffic. That might be one of your metrics. So you can track how many people visited the website, what their profiles are, the kinds of things that interest them once they got to your website. HubSpot is amazing for helping you to identify what's of interest to a potential visitor to your website. So that might be one thing that you look at. And then maybe the amount of sales you generate online. But again, a sale is a sale. So whether you're doing it online or whether this is a business somebody walks into, you are still first and foremost a business.
All right. And then another good question here is, are there resources where you can find different grants that are offered and are legit?
Oh, yeah, legit. I get that question actually a lot, because there are folks out there who you may encounter a platform where they're asking for very intimate information, things that a grantor should not want from you, like your social security number. There are a very small amount of grant makers who will ask you to pay a fee. Actually, I can only think of one, and that's Amber Grants. And they are legit. But most often, to apply for a funding opportunity doesn't cost you anything. So with very few exceptions, if somebody is asking you to pay for the grant, with the exception of like Amber Grant, that might not be legit, might not. And definitely, if you come across a potential grant maker who's asked you for that very personal information, social security number, you shouldn't be giving that out to apply for a grant. Loans, yes. Grants, no. So where should you go? I've listed tons of resources within our presentation today that you can go to look for funding opportunities. And I would just go to those mainstream sites like the Hello Alice, Nerd Wallet, US Chamber. I try to go to those types of databases or websites first, simply because they aggregate so many other funding opportunities within their databases. And if you signed up for Hello Alice, that is one of my all-time favorite website databases for small business grants. If you were to sign up for Hello Alice, they're going to send you in your inbox on a regular basis listings for grants. They've already vetted these grant makers. And so I would say, look for those telltale signs where you really need to run the other direction. And then try to stay on some of those mainstream sites that I did already post for you here. And I've got a few other nuggets. I know that some of you have requested copies of the presentation. I'm going to go ahead and make sure you have that so you can look at all of the different opportunities that I did list, and hopefully some of these will pan out for you.
All right. And man, we have tons of questions. I think this is most questions we've had so far. We're at 130 plus.
Really?
It's rising. So we're going to try to get through as many as possible.
Okay.
Another good question we have is when you are a service-based business rather than a product-based, what are some milestones that a potential funder might be looking for in referring to section 3 of your presentation?
Yeah, and so I'm so glad we have that question, because I saw a lot of questions about organizations who are new, and I feel like this can almost get combined. So we're talking about the milestones for service-based versus product-based, but still, milestones are milestones. So I want you to be thinking like this. I want you to be thinking, what have you solidified in terms of your customer base? So that's milestone. Being able to say we have absolutely secured a solid customer base. Branding is another. So maybe you're able to say we have secured or defined our brand and our brand strategy, right? And if you're new, or whether you're service-based, that still counts. Maybe you've acquired break even. Everybody wants that, where you've gotten to the point, if you are service-based, or even if you're products, but service-based business, where you've got to the place where you've got to break even, that the revenue that you are bringing in is covering your cost. That's a milestone, and that's actually a really good one. And if you're new, you may be able to use that as well. Let's see, getting into new territory. That's another. So think about like the marketing, right? What you might be doing to get yourself out there, visibility and exposure. Maybe you've gone into a new market. Maybe you've used that marketing plan, marketing segmentation, and you're able to expand into new territory. These are considered milestones. And we're talking here, the question was service organization versus product, but I'm sharing these kinds of milestones because if you're relatively new, these also apply to you too.
All
Lots of
right. And
others. I could go on and on for that one, but hopefully that helps you along the way a little bit.
definitely. I think we did go in depth as much as we could. Yeah, in the time that we have. But another good question. I'm sure that we'll be able to just scratch the surface of it. Are for-profit organizations hold on. Okay. Also, are for-profit organizations also able to secure grant funds? Any specific differences between non and for-profit grant writing?
Yeah. So yes, totally. When we think about the small business and funding, anybody funding you, they're wanting to see that you have the capacity to scale. It is usually about profit and scaling to serve more people so that you can grow. When we consider the nonprofit arena, that's not necessarily the case. These funders are very cause oriented on the nonprofit side. They're not even going to ask you a lot of these same questions, totally different questions. They're very concerned with making sure of your social impact and not necessarily, the return on investment dollars. They're really making sure that their community is cared for. And so there is a fundamental difference there. So I would just say that the small business, if you are a small business, and I'm assuming that you are on our webinar today, that you want to be concerned with how you can show a funder that you not only are amazing, but you have the ability to scale your business so that you are sustainable. And I don't mean to spend so much time here, because I know we've got a lot of other questions, but that scaling, you all, is so important. Please hone in on what you're going to do to be sustainable. In 5 years, only 50%. Y'all have heard these numbers. We can't pull this out of a hat. Only 50% of small businesses make it. And then you don't usually hear this stat, but in about 15 years, only about 1/4 of every business that was started is going to be still around. So most businesses don't make it. And so on the nonprofit side, that's all about cause and making sure that the community is cared for. But on the small business side, if you are wanting a small business grant, almost any grant maker is going to want to have you show them your potentiality for sustainability, because that matters to them. So you're talking about how you're going to scale and be sustainable. A nonprofit, cause oriented, how we're going to make sure people have food, those kind of things.
All right. And then another question here on AI. Do you recommend leveraging something like ChatGPT to assist you with copy for grant applications?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm a professional grant writer. I could not wait to start using AI last year when it came out and it hit the world. Cautionary rule, AI is not infallible. So just making sure that whatever content it provides you, that it is your truth, that it does represent what it is you do. So you may go to AI and put in something like, I sell shoes, write me a proposal. Well, when it's all done, it's a beautiful proposal, but is it true? So making sure that you go behind the AI, because you still are the human being driving the car, you're the head of the ship. So making sure that you go back to make sure that whatever content that AI has provided you, that every bit of it is true, and massage it and make it your own. So it's not just AI's words. Making sure that you go in there and you change things up and you use your own wording, how you would speak, make sure it represents you. There's also something else that's really useful for AI, at least specifically for ChatGPT. If you guys are using that, if you're using ChatGPT under your profile, go ahead and write in how you like to communicate. Go ahead and write in a bit about your business, what your business does, when it was established. Help the AI get to know you a little bit better, so that when it does provide responses for you, those responses are more targeted and accurate for what it is your business is doing every day. And writing in your own writing style, because you've given them a snippet of how you write. And so it will learn from that. It's a learning system. So I would say, yes, definitely utilize the tool. It is a tool, but don't allow AI to be you. Get in there and massage it and make it your own. And then disclose. There are some funders that do not want you to use AI with good reason. And if you're going to use AI, you're going to need to disclose that the writing was complemented by AI, but you are the writer of record. So making sure, you actually say that, and that you actually make that true by going in and massaging your responses from AI. So I'm hoping that helps everybody on our call today.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another good question is about applying. And so in strategies of applying, should you apply to multiple grants at the same time? And should these applications be the same? Should your grant writing all be the same for all these applications you're putting in?
Yeah, I love that question. That is the main reason that we're here today, so that you can create a common grant application for your business. See, here's the thing. What's common is what you do, right? And it's unique. I'm sure you guys are amazing. But if I am Cheryl Smith and my company is Doolin Nonprofit Services, I'm still going to be Doolin Nonprofit Services next year. I have the same name, it's the same business, it's the same profile, I'm doing the same thing. I am selling the same widgets. And so what you want to do is create this application for yourself, so that you can streamline your responses, so there's continuity. And believe it or not, you will gain strength and confidence when you have a common grant application so that you can add to it when you need to, but at least you know exactly what it is that you're doing and saying from across multiple applications. And should there be multiple applications? Absolutely. You guys know last year, 5 million small businesses were established. We have over 30 million in our country. This is highly competitive. If applying for grants were easy, literally everybody be funded and everybody be doing it. It's not. You're going to get more no's than yeses. So my recommendation to you all, everybody that's listening, is please go ahead, identify mission aligned or eligible opportunities that you're eligible for, and I want you to apply for all of them, because there's no chance that you're going to probably get all. I mean, there's a chance, but it's a slight chance that you'll get even one of them because there's more no's than yeses. Okay. So I want you to apply for as many opportunities as you possibly can. Use your common grant application to do that. It's supposed to be your tool, your helper. So use it for that and never, ever give up. And I don't know if this is a question, Cody, but I get this a lot. Do I reapply? Yes. I tend to reapply until I get awarded. Unless that funder tells me we are no longer offering funding, I'm going to reapply if I'm eligible until I get funded. So never, ever give up. Yeah.
All right. Yes. And very inspiring, very helpful. And then another good question is, should we, what is it? I guess let me it's good. There's some misspellings here, but depending on the grant, does it determine how you use the money in the grant?
Oh, yeah, it definitely does. So you'll follow guidelines. So you'll apply for funding. And let's say the purpose of the funding is marketing. Let's say that your funder wants to expand you into different territory. You need to have a good marketing strategy for that. And if you've told the funder you're going to hire an employee, then do that. But if you didn't, then you can't really use funding that you weren't approved for. So you really have to make sure you're meeting your own deliverable. The great news about small business grants is, gosh, they just seem to be a little more lenient. And so if you're asking for funding to scale your business, usually for operations, do you know how many things are included in operations? So usually you'll be able to do multiple things with that funding award, or is on the nonprofit side, it's just completely different. Usually it's very restrictive. But yes, there are grants for specific things. And whatever you told a funder that you wanted the grant for, you will need those funds, need to use those funds accordingly. Otherwise, there's a myth out there that says grants are not repaid. Yes, they are. If they're misallocated, then you'll need to pay that grant back. So making sure that you keep with whatever it is you told the funder that you wanted the funds for, that becomes your deliverable, and you've got to deliver.
And building off of that, what type of proof or receipts do they ask for, and when do they ask for them as far as how you're spending that money? I mean, how should you track it?
Oh, I love all this. Okay, yeah, because when you apply and you're awarded, one of the first things that you'll know, well, first of all, sometimes funders are going to tell you up front what type of report and reporting they're going to require and the duration and when it's going to be due. Many times they don't do that until you're awarded. And so once you are awarded, most often that funder is going to reach out to you by email. Hey, congratulations, you've been awarded and we can't wait to meet you. And then when they meet you, and they typically want to meet you, then they're going to lay out all the criteria for this award and what your expectations are. And before they hand over that nice juicy check, you're going to sign and agree to things that you're going to agree to. And it might be reporting. It might be that you give them a copy of a financial statement at the end of the quarter. It might be quarterly, it might be annually, but that funder is going to make that determination. And if it's we used marketing earlier, so let's keep with that. If it's marketing, then maybe they want to see the results of that marketing. One, receipts that you've spent the money according to what you said you were going to spend the money on. And then proof is in the pudding. They may want to see some results as a result of that funding. What happened next? How can you share with us that your marketing dollars were actually impactful? And in that case, you'll probably share things like visitors to your website or whatever it is they come up with. But rest assured, you're not going to pull these reports from a hat. The funder already knows what they want you to report on. They know what, and they also know when. It's just your job to follow those guidelines if you hope to be funded by them again.
All right. And so it looks like we went over time. I got distracted, wasn't paying
Oh, I'm
attention.
sorry.
No, no worries, no worries.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, yeah, and so it looks like that is all the time we had for questions today. I know we had tons of questions, so we tried to get to as many as possible. But we do have a few options. Of course, Cheryl did provide her contact information if you want to reach out for that slide deck. And then the recording will be available on score.org in the recorded webinar section. So with that, I'd like to give Cheryl a special thanks. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing this valuable information with the audience today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you to SCORE and the SBA. And thank you all for showing up today.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. And with that, we'll go ahead and end the webinar. And that is the end of National Small Business Week. We thank you all for joining us for this last 2 days. And we look forward to seeing you in the future. So with that, we'll go ahead and close out today's webinar. Goodbye, everyone.